You've been glued to those Hurricane Milton updates, haven't you? And we've got a ton to dig into today, really get a grip on what this storm means, thanks to these reports from NBC News. This is going to be interesting, to say the least.
You know what's got me? It's how fast this thing blew up. Like 1 minute it's manageable, the next, bam, Cat 3. Caught a lot of folks off guard. This wasn't your typical, oh, it's hurricane season kind of thing. This was different.
Yeah, the reports really hit on that rapid intensification, don't they? Like going from 0 to 60 in a few hours, meteorologically speaking,
Yeah.
right? What's the deal with that? Why this sudden jump?
Well, think of it this way. Warm ocean water, that's hurricane rocket fuel, right? And the Gulf, oh, it was practically overflowing. Then you toss in low wind shear, which usually messes up hurricane formation, and boom, you've got Milton basically hitting a growth spurt, a big one.
So it slams into Siesta Key, Florida, 120-mile-per-hour winds. Talk about worst case, huh?
Absolutely, and sadly, we're already seeing the cost. Those reports from St. Lucie County, those are tough to read. Confirmed fatalities from a tornado, can you believe it? Spawned by the hurricane, no less. And to make matters even worse, there was that senior living community in St. Lucie completely gone, just gone, wiped off the map.
Oh, man, that's awful. And about 10 more people hurt by another tornado, this one in Wellington, Florida, the reports mentioned. Sounds like some got lucky, minor stuff, but others are fighting for their lives, on life support and all. Milton didn't mess around.
Really drives home how fast hurricane can turn deadly, doesn't it? And it's often those mobile home communities, often in lower income areas, they get hit the hardest.
It's true. Those reports mentioned a lot of damage to mobile homes, which makes sense. They're just not built for those winds. So on top of the immediate danger, you've got this whole other problem, people without homes, rebuilding, and in communities that were struggling to begin with,
Exactly. It highlights how these things are connected, natural disasters and, well, everything else. But it's not just the damage, right? Can you imagine living through something like that?
I can't even imagine. Some of those reports are chilling. There's this one, they describe this eerie silence when the eye of the storm passed over Sarasota, that calm before the, the back eye wall? The worst part of the storm, that it hits full force.
Oh, yeah. The back eye wall is nothing to mess with. It trails behind the eye and usually packs the strongest winds. Just picture it. You're in Sarasota, things seem okay for a moment, then bam, you get slammed by the worst of it.
And that storm chaser, Ben McMillan, I was reading his account from Bradenton, and man, intense doesn't even cut it. You could practically feel that wind and rain through his words. He described it as being whipped sideways, stinging your skin, almost impossible to see.
And have you seen those photos out of Sarasota? Really shows you what we're dealing with here. Palm trees shredded, debris all over, water rising fast. Mother Nature not holding back, that's for sure.
Not at all. And what's crazy is Milton just ripped right across Florida, didn't it? Each place with its own set of problems. Like Tampa Bay, they were already soaked from Hurricane Helene, and now they've got a flash flood emergency on their hands. Reports say another foot of rain on top of everything else they've gotten.
Yeah, the ground's completely saturated. It's like trying to add more water to a glass that's already overflowing just spells disaster. And that wasn't enough. The storm churns east. Orlando's telling everyone to get to shelter. Now, the I-4 corridor is right in the thick of it.
Why is the I-4 corridor such a big deal anyway?
Well, think about it. It connects Tampa, Orlando, Daytona Beach, all those major places. It's a lifeline. And if that gets shut down, floods, debris, whatever it is, talk about a logistical nightmare.
No kidding. Evacuation routes cut off, emergency services can't get through, domino effect.
Yeah.
And, even Fort Myers, which kind of dodged the worst of it, they're still dealing with a mess. Power's out, trees are down, water's rising. It's something else.
It's like dropping a pebble in a pond, The ripples just keep spreading, and those numbers coming out, it's not looking good. At the peak of that storm, over 2 million utility customers, no power in Florida.
2 million. Seriously, can you even wrap your head around that? That's not just like lights out for a bit. That's people's whole lives on hold.
You got it. And getting that back up and running, that's a tall order. Power lines are down. The substations get fried. Some places might be looking at a total grid failure. And without power, everything gets harder, way harder. Communication, sanitation, even just staying safe, especially if you've got medical needs.
Makes you realize how much we depend on electricity, huh? It's easy to take for granted until it's gone. And the physical damage, too. Those reports are saying something like 125 homes completely destroyed, mostly those mobile homes, and they're expecting that number to climb.
Sadly, that's kind of par for the course with hurricanes, Mobile homes, yeah, they're easier on the wallet sometimes, but those winds, forget it. And then you add in those tornadoes, like Milton was spitting out. It's a recipe for disaster, plain and simple. Makes you think about those building codes, and how important it is to be ready, especially for those communities that are already up against it.
Couldn't agree more. And like you were saying earlier about the socioeconomic factors here, it's like this perfect storm, no pun intended. The effects go way beyond the wind and water.
Exactly. The economic hit can be brutal. Businesses have to close up shop, tourism takes a nosedive, and then there's that whole rebuilding thing, which costs a fortune. And don't even get me started on the psychological toll this takes. Living through a hurricane, maybe losing everything, that fear. That stays with you even after the storm's long gone.
And in the middle of all this, any good news? What are those reports saying about the response effort?
It's funny, even when things are at their worst, that's when you see the best in people. Those first responders, National Guard, they're going nonstop rescuing folks, especially over in St. Lucie County. Real heroes, putting themselves on the line like that.
No doubt about it. That kind of dedication is incredible.
Yeah.
What about just regular people, though? Any stories of folks helping each other out?
Are you kidding? Tons of them. Neighbors helping neighbors, people opening up their homes to those who lost everything, volunteers coming out of the woodwork to help with the cleanup. It's a beautiful thing,
Yeah.
Shows you what we're capable of when times get tough.
That's really something. One thing that really stuck with me was that bit about Tropicana Field over in Tampa Bay. You hear that? The roof got ripped open by those winds, and that's a stadium, Milton wasn't even directly over them, but it goes to show you how strong that thing was.
It's kind of poetic in a way, isn't it? This huge building built to handle anything, and Mother Nature just shrugs it off. We can prepare all we want, build things stronger, but at the end of the day, you gotta respect the power of nature.
No doubt. And unfortunately, it sounds like Florida's not out of the clear just yet. Milton might be losing steam, but it's still got that hurricane status as it moves across the state. What does that mean for the folks in its path?
It ain't over till it's over, my friend. That's the thing about hurricanes. They can pack a wallop even after they've made landfall. All that rain, the chance of more tornadoes, and don't forget about the flooding, especially along the I-4 corridor. That's a recipe for a long emergency for millions.
Yeah, it really makes you think, doesn't it? Hurricane season, it's not just a one-time thing. It's this, looming threat. Got to stay on your toes.
No doubt about it. And we're sitting here looking at these reports, trying to make sense of it all, but it's easy to forget, Behind all these numbers, these maps, these are real people dealing with some seriously tough stuff.
Absolutely. And those reports, they don't let you forget it either. Like we were talking about before, that senior living community in St. Lucie, those stories just hit you.
It's heartbreaking.
These were folks who were already vulnerable, right? Maybe health problems, trouble getting around, and then, boom, their whole lives are uprooted just like that.
It makes you realize we got to do better for those communities, not just after the storm, but before, during, the whole 9 yards. Figure out who needs that extra help and make sure they're taken care of no matter what.
Makes you wonder about the long game, too. The reports, they focus on what's happening right now, but what about next week, next month, next year even?
That's when the real heavy lifting starts. It's not just about food, shelter, making sure people are safe right this second. It's about jobs, businesses, that whole tourism industry taking a hit. And then there's the whole rebuilding thing, which can take forever and cost a fortune. And we can't forget about the mental and emotional toll this takes, Going through something like that, it leaves a mark, that's for sure.
So as we wrap up our deep dive on Hurricane Milton, what's the one thing you want our listeners to walk away with? What have we learned from all of this?
I think Hurricane Milton is a wake-up call, plain and simple. This stuff, it's the new normal. These storms are getting stronger, and they're not going away. Having a plan, paying attention to those evacuation orders, knowing what resources are out there, that's not just being prepared, that's survival,
It's a reality check for all of us, that's for sure. Even if you don't live in a hurricane zone, just understanding what's at stake, how it affects people, that's huge. So as we close out, let's all keep those folks affected by Hurricane Milton in our thoughts, and let's recognize the amazing strength of those communities and the folks out there working around the clock to help. Stay safe, everyone.